Hi everyone. The problem now that we are going to solve involves the input table as hire info. This table has below columns hire ID, which is the ID of the hire date, that is the date on which the hiring was done, hire name, that is the person who got hired, hire mail, that is the mail ID of the person who was hired. So each entry gives the information about the person who was hired and when the person got hired on which date. So this is the input that we have. As part of the output, we need to find out in a given quarter, like when the quarter is starting, when it is ending, and how many people were hired in the quarter. So for example, if we see here, there are three people who are hired in the first quarter of 2021, that is between 1st of January till 31st of March 2021. There are three people hired. So that's why these three people are shown here. That is, there are three total hires in the first quarter starting from 1st January 2021 till 31st March 2021. So this way, we have to find out in each of the quarters how many people got hired. So let's work on this problem and try to generate the output. Now, just to give a brief, we have four quarters and these are the quarters. Each quarter is split into 3 months and these are the quarter start and end dates. So to solve this problem, what we are going to do is, so we have to determine the quarter based on the hire date. So if we can identify which quarter that hire date belongs to, we can easily find out the first and the last date of that quarter. So the first ask is we need to find out the quarter in which the hire date belongs. If we can do that, we can get the first and last date of the quarter. So we will start with that step and then we will proceed forward. So let's start writing the query and we will understand then how we can proceed ahead. So we will work on the input table, that is hire info. So what we will do is we will retain all the columns initially. Okay. So this is what we have. Now what we will do is, as a first step, we will try to identify what is the quarter of this hire date. So how do we do that? For that, we will use the date part function. In that, the first parameter that we will pass is quarter, saying that we want to identify the quarter. And then we will pass of which column quarter we want to find out. So that is hire date. So we will pass that as the second column. So this will be our quarter. So let's give the name QRT and let's run and see the output. And also let's sort it by the hire date so that it is easy to visualize. Let's see the output. So now we have determined the quarter based on the hire date. So as we see, if the date is in the range 1st of January till 31st of March, it is quarter 1 for any of the years. Then if it is in the second range, that is from 1st April till 30th June, it will be quarter 2. So if we see here, for any dates between 1st April and 30th June, it is quarter 2. And likewise, we have the other quarter details that we have determined here. So once we have the quarter, it is very easy to identify the first and last date. So now what we will do is, based on this quarter, we will try to determine the quarter start and quarter end date. So for that, what we will do is, we will use the case condition. So this is a slight different variant of case condition that we will use here. It's kind of switch statement that is used in other languages. So what we will do is, we will take this, the quarter that we have determined, and we will simply add different when conditions. So when the quarter is 1, then we will populate the start date. So now we are trying to fetch the start date based on the quarter that we have determined. So let's name the column as quarter start, and when this quarter is 1, then we will we need to add the date as 1st of January of that year. So we will fetch the date from the higher date, we will fetch the year part, and we will make the month and the start date as hard code value, that is 1st of January for quarter 1. So this is what we will do, and similar lines we will do for other quarters. So we have 4 quarters, 2, 3 and 4, and we will take the year part from the higher date, and the other things we will make as hard coded values. Okay, so like we saw here, so the first from the second quarter, the first date is 1st April, then it will be 1st of July for third quarter, and 1st of October for the fourth quarter. So similarly, we will do the same here, and we will populate the start date. So based on the quarter that we have determined, we are checking that value and we are populating the respective start date. Okay, so we have just fetched the year part from the higher date and hard coded the month and the date part. So this way we will determine the start date. So let's run and see the output. Okay, so now for each of the hire date, we have determined what is the quarter start date. Okay, so that way we have identified for each of the records. We have fetched this column. Now the next task is fetching the quarter end date. So we will work on the similar lines to fetch the quarter end date. So what we will do is we will just replicate the same task, same process that we have done. And this time what we will do is now we have to populate the end dates here. So what are the end dates? It will be 31st March. So just to show in the sheet. So now we are populating these dates: 31st March for quarter 1, 30th June for quarter 2, 30th September for quarter 3, and 31st December for quarter 4. So that is what we are populating now, depending on what is the quarter. So let's populate that. So it will be 30th June for the second quarter, then it will be 30th September for the third quarter, and finally 31st December for the last quarter, that is quarter 4. And let's make the column name as quarter end. So let's run and see the output. So now we have got the quarter start and quarter end date for each of the entries. Now it is, if we have reached till this stage, then the problem is very simple. What now we have to do is we have to just aggregate on this and count the number of entries. That way we will get the final solution. So what we will do is we will add this as part of a CTE. So let's call it as higher CTE. Okay, so we will add it as part of the CTE. We will remove the order by clause as we cannot add it as part of the CTE. And now we will work on this CTE that we just created, that is higher CTE. What we will do is we will take only two columns from here, that is quarter start and quarter end. And what we will do is we will group by this column. Okay, seems some issue. I think we have missed the as clause here, that is added. So we will group by these two columns now, quarter start and quarter end. And let's order also by the quarter start date so that it is easy to visualize. And finally, we will add the count, that is the number of entries present. We will call it as total hires. Okay, so let's run and see the output. So this is the final output that we have. We have determined for each of the quarter how many employees got hired. So we have rightly determined the final result. So depending on the input, based on when the employees were hired, we have determined in which quarter how many employees got hired. So let's do a quick walkthrough of the query that we have written, how we have reached to the solution. So this is the query that we have built, and what we have done initially is, first of all, we have determined what is the quarter in which the employee was hired based on the hire date. So once we have that information, we have checked what is the quarter, whether it is 1, 2, 3, or 4, and based on that, we have fetched the year part from the hire date and hard coded the start date, as we are already aware that this is not going to change. And for formatting the date, we have used the format function. On similar lines, by checking the quarter, we have populated the end dates for each of the entries. So once we have the start and end dates, it is very simple. We have to just do a aggregation on these two dates and get the total count. So this way we can identify the number of employees that were hired in the particular quarter of a given year. So this way we have solved the problem. So the create table and insert statements will be added in the description. Please go through it. If you have any alternate solution, please post in the comments. If you found the video useful, please like the video. If you have not yet subscribed the channel, please subscribe, and please share the video in your circle so that more people can benefit. Thank you.